A nation forged in fire. The Turkish War of Independence and the Armenian Genocide. The twilight of the First World War cast a long and ominous shadow over Anatolia. The once mighty Ottoman Empire lay in ruins, its vast territories carved up by the victorious Allied powers in the Treaty of Sèvres, in 1920. This humiliation ignited a fiery crucible of resistance. The Turkish War of Independence, from 1919 to 1923. This epic saga, a desperate struggle for self-determination, would not only reshape the geopolitical landscape of the region but also forever be intertwined with the horrific stain of the Armenian Genocide. The embers of defiance were stoked by a potent cocktail of national pride and resentment. Decades of decline within the Ottoman Empire culminated in the devastation of the First World War. The Treaty of Sèvres, dripping with the arrogance of victors, sought to dismantle the remnants of the empire, imposing harsh territorial restrictions and throttling Turkish sovereignty. This ignited a firestorm of nationalist fervor, finding its voice in the newly formed Turkish National Movement, TNM. Mustafa Kemal Pasha, a brilliant military strategist with unwavering resolve, emerged as the leader of this resistance. The TNM, a defiant force fueled by patriotism and desperation, refused to accept the dictates of Sèvres. Kemal Pasha rallied the Turkish people with a simple yet powerful message: the preservation of Turkish sovereignty and territorial integrity. The war itself unfolded on a brutal tapestry of battlefields. The nascent Turkish forces, a ragtag assembly of volunteers and irregulars, faced a daunting challenge. The Allied powers, particularly Greece and France, enforced the harsh terms of Sèvres through military occupation. Yet the Turks, fueled by a fervent national consciousness and skillfully crafted propaganda, clawed back territory inch by bloody inch. However, the war transcended the clash of arms. It was a struggle not just for land, but for the very soul of a nation. The establishment of the Grand National Assembly in Ankara served as a powerful symbol of a nascent Turkish nationhood, offering an alternative to the moribund Ottoman Sultanate. Mustafa Kemal, later known as Ataturk, or Father of the Turks, navigated the treacherous waters of diplomacy with remarkable skill. He secured limited support from the Soviet Union, a rising power with its own ambitions, while capitalizing on the growing disillusionment among the Allied powers with the war effort. The war's legacy, however, is forever stained by the Armenian Genocide. In the years leading up to the war, 1915 to 1917, the Ottoman government had orchestrated a systematic campaign of deportation, massacre, and forced conversion of its Armenian population. This horrific episode, fueled by ethnic and religious animosity, claimed the lives of an estimated 1.5 million Armenians. While the war raged, the ongoing Armenian catastrophe cast a long and tragic shadow over the struggle for Turkish independence. The tide of the war turned in 1922 with the pivotal Battle of Dumlupınar, a grueling encounter forever etched in Turkish memory as the Great Offensive. The Turkish forces, fueled by an unyielding determination to defend their homeland, inflicted a crushing defeat on the Greek army. This battlefield triumph paved the way for the signing of the Treaty of Lausanne in 1923, a far more favorable agreement for Turkey compared to Sèvres. The treaty recognized Turkish sovereignty over Anatolia and Eastern Thrace, marking the formal demise of the Ottoman Empire and the birth of the Republic of Turkey. The Turkish War of Independence, a saga of defiance against imperialism and national resilience, forever reshaped the map of the Middle East. However, the war's legacy remains a complex and contested narrative. For some, it is a glorious struggle for national liberation. For others, it is a conflict inextricably linked to a horrific episode of ethnic cleansing. The echoes of this tumultuous period continue to resonate. The war serves as a stark reminder of the transformative power of nationalism, the dangers of unchecked imperialism, and the enduring human cost of conflict. It also compels a critical examination of the Armenian Genocide, ensuring that the victims are never forgotten and the horrors of the past are not repeated. The Turkish War of Independence and the Armenian Genocide, forever intertwined in a tragic dance of history, stand as a cautionary tale, urging introspection, reconciliation, and a commitment to a future built on mutual respect and understanding. A fading dream, the League of Nations and the struggle for peace. In the wake of the Great War's cataclysm, a nascent dream flickered to life. The dream of a world order built on cooperation and collective security. From the ashes of empires rose the League of Nations, an ambitious yet fragile experiment in international diplomacy aimed at preventing future global conflicts. We will delve into the aspirations and struggles of the League, a saga of idealism, political maneuvering, and ultimately, disillusionment. The League's existence, though ultimately short-lived, serves as a crucial chapter in the evolution of international relations, forever shaping the quest for a peaceful world. The League's birth stemmed from the horrors witnessed on the battlefields of the First World War. The Treaty of Versailles, the document that formally ended the war, recognized the need for a new world order to prevent such devastation from recurring. The League, established under the treaty's covenant, aimed to achieve this by fostering cooperation among nations, advocating for disarmament, and resolving international disputes through peaceful means. Its structure, featuring an assembly with representation from all member states, a council with permanent members wielding significant power, and a permanent secretariat to handle administrative duties, reflected the nascent concept of a global community. The League's early years offered glimpses of hope. It successfully resolved several territorial disputes, mediated international crises, and established humanitarian agencies to combat global health challenges like epidemics. The League's idealistic spirit resonated with many, offering a stark contrast to the brutal power politics that had dominated international relations for centuries. However, the League's effectiveness was hampered by inherent weaknesses. The United States, a nation with immense economic and military power, chose not to join, a significant blow to the League's authority. The principle of unanimity for major decisions within the Council often led to paralysis, as powerful nations could veto actions that did not align with their national interests. Moreover, the League lacked the ability to enforce its decisions, relying solely on moral persuasion and international pressure. The League's true test came in the face of rising aggression in the 1930s. The Japanese invasion of Manchuria in 1931 exposed the League's impotence. Unable to enforce its condemnation of Japan's actions, the League's authorities suffered a crippling blow. Similarly, the Italian invasion of Ethiopia in 1935 showcased the League's inability to respond effectively to blatant violations of international law. These failures emboldened expansionist powers like Germany and Italy, who saw the League's weakness as an opportunity to pursue their territorial ambitions. The League's ultimate demise was inextricably linked to the rise of Adolf Hitler and Nazi Germany. Hitler's blatant disregard for the League's principles, coupled with the appeasement policies adopted by some Western nations, paved the way for the Second World War. The League's inability to deter German aggression, culminating in its expulsion from the organization in 1939, marked a symbolic end to its already waning influence. With the outbreak of the Second World War, the dream of a peaceful world order shattered. The League, unable to fulfill its central purpose of preventing global conflict, was formally dissolved in 1946. Despite its shortcomings, the League's legacy is not solely one of failure. It paved the way for the creation of the United Nations after the Second World War, an organization that learned from the League's mistakes and was designed with a stronger enforcement capability. The League's idealistic vision of international cooperation and collective security remains a cornerstone of modern global diplomacy. The League's story serves as a potent reminder of the challenges inherent in building a peaceful world. It highlights the importance of collective action, the dangers of appeasement, and the need for an international body with the power to enforce its decisions. The League's existence, though a fleeting dream, serves as a crucial stepping stone in the ongoing pursuit of international peace and cooperation. Its legacy endures as a cautionary tale and a source of inspiration, forever intertwined with the turbulent history of the 20th century. A nation in anguish. The devastating grip of the Russian famine of 1921 to 1922. In the smoldering aftermath of the Great War and the throes of the Russian Civil War, a specter of despair stalked the vast plains of Russia. The famine of 1921 to 1922, a nightmarish crucible of hunger and desperation, claimed the lives of millions and etched a deep scar on the soul of a nation. We will explore the confluence of factors that triggered this catastrophe, the harrowing experiences of those who endured it, and the enduring legacy of this tragic chapter in Russian history. The seeds of this famine were sown during the tumultuous years preceding it. The relentless carnage of the First World War had crippled agricultural production, leaving reserves depleted and transportation networks in disarray. The subsequent Russian Civil War, 1917 to 1921, further exacerbated the situation. The warring factions, the Bolsheviks, the Reds, and the anti-communist whites, engaged in ruthless requisitioning of grain from peasants. This disrupted planting cycles and left vast swathes of farmland fallow. Adding to the woes was a devastating drought that gripped the Volga and Ural River regions in 1921. This natural calamity decimated harvests, plunging millions into a desperate struggle for survival. The newly formed Soviet government, grappling with the challenges of consolidating power and establishing a socialist economy, lacked the infrastructure and resources to effectively respond to the burgeoning crisis. The human cost of the famine was staggering. Estimates suggest that as many as 5 million people perished from starvation and related diseases. The once fertile plains were transformed into landscapes of despair, with villages ravaged by hunger and families torn apart by loss. Horrific tales of cannibalism and desperation became grim testaments to the depths of human suffering. The Soviet government, facing international criticism and internal dissent, initially resisted calls for foreign aid. However, as the scale of the disaster became evident, they reluctantly accepted assistance from international organizations like the American Relief Administration, ARA, led by Herbert Hoover. This influx of food aid provided a lifeline to many, but it arrived too late for countless victims. The famine left an indelible mark on the Soviet psyche. It fueled distrust of the government among the peasantry and exposed the vulnerabilities of the nascent socialist system. The government, in a bid to prevent future famines, embarked on a program of forced collectivization, a move that would have far-reaching consequences for Soviet agriculture in the years to come. The legacy of the famine remains a contested issue. Some argue that the Soviet government's policies, particularly its reluctance to accept foreign aid and its requisitioning practices, exacerbated the crisis. Others point to the devastating combination of war, drought, and the chaotic transition to a new economic system as the primary causes. Regardless of the blame, the Russian famine of 1921 to 1922 serves as a stark reminder of the devastating consequences of war, natural disasters, and economic mismanagement. It highlights the importance of international cooperation in the face of humanitarian crises. The echoes of this tragic episode continue to resonate in Russian history, a cautionary tale of the fragility of food security and the enduring human cost of conflict and upheaval. A shadow cast: the March on Rome and the rise of fascist Italy. In the turbulent aftermath of the First World War, a specter of ambition and resentment stalked the streets of Italy. Benito Mussolini, a firebrand with a venomous ideology, seized upon the nation's disillusionment to orchestrate the March on Rome in 1922. This audacious act of political theater, though not a full-blown military conquest, marked a pivotal turning point in Italian history. It ushered in the era of fascist rule, a dark chapter that cast a long shadow over the nation and ultimately plunged Europe into the abyss of the Second World War. The fertile ground for Mussolini's rise was cultivated in the trenches of the Great War. Italy, despite emerging victorious, emerged from the conflict deeply scarred and disillusioned. The war had inflicted heavy casualties, crippled the economy, and left a deep sense of national frustration. The pre-war political order, unable to deliver on promises of prosperity and national glory, was deemed a failure by many. This social and political malaise provided fertile ground for the emergence of extremist ideologies. Mussolini, a former socialist who had embraced a virulent form of nationalism, saw an opportunity to exploit Italy's anxieties. He founded the National Fascist Party, PNF, in 1919, a movement that promised national renewal, a return to past glories, and a radical solution to Italy's problems. Fascist ideology, a potent brew of ultranationalism, social Darwinism, and anti-communism, resonated with a significant portion of the Italian population, particularly veterans yearning for a sense of purpose and disillusioned youth seeking a new order. The PNF, initially a fringe movement, gradually gained traction through a combination of charismatic leadership, propaganda, and violence. Mussolini, a skilled orator with a knack for manipulating public sentiment, railed against the perceived failings of the liberal government, promising a strong and rejuvenated Italy. Fascist propaganda, disseminated through rallies, newspapers, and nascent mass media, painted a picture of a glorious past and a brighter future under Mussolini's leadership. The party's paramilitary wing, the Blackshirts, employed violence and intimidation against political opponents, further destabilizing the existing order. By 1922, Italy was teetering on the brink of chaos. Strikes, labor unrest, and a breakdown in public order created a climate of fear and uncertainty. Mussolini, sensing an opportune moment, capitalized on this turmoil. He orchestrated the March on Rome, a carefully staged display of force. Thousands of blackshirts descended upon Rome, aiming to pressure King Victor Emmanuel III to hand over power. Though not a full-scale military coup, the march was a calculated gamble, designed to intimidate the king and demonstrate the PNF's growing power. Facing a potential civil war, the king, unwilling to unleash bloodshed on his own soil, made a fateful decision. He appointed Mussolini as prime minister, effectively legitimizing the fascist movement and granting them a foothold in the government. This decision, though intended to restore order, inadvertently paved the way for the erosion of democracy and the consolidation of fascist power. The March on Rome, though not a violent conquest, marked a pivotal turning point. It ushered in a period of repression and authoritarian rule. Mussolini, wielding the mantle of legitimacy, gradually dismantled democratic institutions, outlawed opposition parties, and consolidated his hold on power. Italy embarked on a path of extreme nationalism, militarism, and suppression of dissent. The legacy of the March on Rome is a dark one. It marked the beginning of a period that culminated in Italy's involvement in the Second World War, a conflict that ravaged the nation and left a lasting scar on European history. The March on Rome serves as a chilling reminder of the dangers of unchecked populism and the allure of extremist ideologies in times of national disillusionment. It highlights the importance of safeguarding democratic institutions and the perils of appeasement in the face of rising authoritarianism. The echoes of this tumultuous episode continue to resonate in Italian history, a cautionary tale of the fragility of democracy and the devastating consequences of unchecked ambition. In the next chapter, we will cover the Irish Civil War, as well as the so-called Beer Hall Putsch, Hitler and the Nazi Party's attempt to overthrow the government in Germany.